While reciting the Srimad Bhagavatam, which is the very means of conquest, one should offer respectful obeisances unto the personality of Godhead Narayan, unto Narayan Rishi, the supremest human being, unto Mother Sarasvati, the goddess of learning, and unto Srila Vyasa, the author. Shindatam Sakata Krishna, Punya Shavana Kirtana, Vidyantasto Badrani, Vedunoti Suhritsatam, Sri Krishna, the personality of Godhead, who is the Paramatma, super soul in everyone's heart, and the benefactor of the truthful devotee, cleanses desire for material enjoyment from the heart of the devotee who has developed the urge to hear his messages, which are in themselves virtuous when properly heard and chanted. Nashta Prayeshu Bhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavati Uttama Shloke Bhakti Bhavati Naishtaki. By regular attendance in classes on the Bhagavatam and by rendering service to the pure devotee, all that is troublesome to the heart is almost completely destroyed, and loving service unto the personality of Godhead, who is praised with transcendental songs, is established as an irrevocable fact. So So we have a reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 2, Chapter 7, entitled, wait a minute, that's a wrong canto, I'm not there yet. Scheduled incarnations with specific functions. And we're on verse 10. Nabher, Asav, Vishava, Asa, Sudevi, Sunur, Nabher, Asa, Vishava, Asa, Sudevi, Sunir,
Nabher, Asa, Vishava, Asa, Sudevi, Sunur, Yo, Vai, Chachara, Sama, Drig, Jada, Yoga, Charyam, Yovai, Chachara, Sama, Drig, Jada, Yoga, Charyam,
Yovai, Chachara, Sama, Drig, Jada, Yoga, Charyam, Yat,
Paramahamsyam, Vishaya, Padam, Amananti, Yat Paramahamsyam, Vishaya, Padam, Amananti,
Yat Paramahamsyam, Vishaya, Padam, Amananti,
Padam, Amananti. Okay. Swasta, Prashanta, Karana, Parimukta, Sangaha, Swasta, Prashanta, Karana, Parimukta, Sangaha, Nabher, Asa, Vrishava, Asa, Sudevi, Sunir, Yovai, Chachara, Samadrig, Jada, Yoga, Charyam, Yad Paramahamsyam, Rishaya, Padam, Amananti, Swasta, Prashanta, Karana, Parimukta, Sangaha, Nabher, Asa, Vrishava, Asa, Sudevi, Sunir, Yovai, Chachara, Samadrik, Jada, Yoga, Charyam, Yat Paramahamsyam, Rishaya, Padam, Amananti, Swasta, Prashanta, Karana, Parimukta, Sangaha, Please chant.
Nabhirasa Vishivasa Sudevi Sumir, Yovai Chachara Samadri Chada Yoga Charanti Charyam Yoga Charanti Yat Paramaham Sham Vishivapadam Amanti Swastan Prashanta Karana Parimukta Sangaha Nabhirasa Vishavasi Sudevi Sumir Samadri Jada Yoga Chayam Yovai Chachara Samadri Jada Yoga Chayam Yat Paramahamsyam Rishaya Padam Amananti Yat Paramahamsyam Rishaya Padam Amanti Swastan Prashanta Karana
Sangha
Swastam Prashanta Karana Parimukta Sangha
Navirasa Vishavasa Sudevi Sumir
Navirasa Vishavasa Sudevi Sumir Yogačara Samadhi-Jatayogacayam Yatparamahamsya Vishaya Padamamanti Swasta Prashanta Karna Parimukta Sangha
Navirasa Sudevi Shumir
Navirasa Vishavasa Sudevi Sumir
Yovai Chochara Shamadri Jagayogacharyam
Yogačara Samadhi Jatayogacayam
Yat Paramahamsham Rashaya Param Amananti
Yat Paramahamsam Vishaya Padamamanti
Vashtaha Prashanta Charanaha Parimukta Sangha
Swasta Prashanta Karana
Sangha
Sangha.
Is that everybody? Okay. Word meanings. Nabhe
Nabhe
by Maharaj Nabhi.
by Maharaj Nabi
Aso,
Asao
the personality of Godhead.
the personality of Godhead
Rishabha,
Vishava
Rishaba. Asa
Asa
became
became
Sudevi.
Sudevi
That's our name, same name. Sunuhu, the son of.
The son of
Yaha,
Yaha
who? By certainly.
certainly
Chachara,
Chachara
performed.
perform
Samadrik,
Samadri
equibalanced.
balance
Jada,
Jada
material.
material
Yogacharyam,
Yogacharam
performance of yoga.
performance of yoga
Yat,
Yat
which?
which
Paramahamsyam,
Paramahamsam
the highest stage of perfection.
the highest stage of perfection
Rishayaha,
Rishayaha
the learned sages.
the learned sages
Padam,
Padam
situation.
situation
Amananti,
Amanati
do accept.
You
to
accept
accept
Swastaha,
Swastaha
self-repose.
self-repose
Prashanta,
Prashanta
suspended.
Suspended
Karanaha,
Karanaha
the material senses.
the material senses
Parimukta,
Parimukta
perfectly liberated.
perfectly liberated
Sangaha,
Sangaha
material contamination.
material contaminations.
Okay, translation and purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada.
Jai Srila Prabhupada
The Lord appeared as the son of Sudevi, the wife of King Nabhi, and was known as Rishabhadev. He performed materialistic yoga to equibalance the mind. This stage is also accepted as the highest perfectional situation of liberation, wherein one is situated in oneself and is completely satisfied. Please repeat. The Lord appeared as the son of Sudevi,
The Lord appeared as the son of Sudevi,
the wife of King Nabhi,
the wife of King Nabhi,
and was known as Rishabhadev.
and was known as Rishabhadev.
He performed materialistic yoga
He performed materialistic yoga
to equibalance the mind.
to equibalance the mind.
This stage is also accepted
This stage is also accepted
as the highest perfectional situation of liberation,
as the highest perfectional situation of liberation,
wherein one is situated
wherein one is situated
in oneself
in oneself
and is completely satisfied.
and is completely satisfied.
Okay, purport. Out of many types of mystic performances for self-realization, the process of Jata Yoga is also one accepted by authorities. This Jata Yoga involves practicing becoming like a dumb stone and not being affected by material reactions. Just as a stone is indifferent to all kinds of attacks and reattacks of external situations, similarly, one practices Jata Yoga by tolerating voluntary affliction of pain upon the material body. Such yogis, out of many self-infliction methods, practice plucking the hairs on their heads without shaving and without any instrumental help. But the real purpose of such Jata Yoga practice is to get free from all material affection and to be completely situated in the self. At the last stage of his life, Emperor Rishabhadev wandered like a dumb madman, unaffected by all kinds of bodily mistreatment. Seeing him like a madman, wandering naked with long hair and a long beard, less intelligent children and men in the street used to spit on him and urinate on his body. Seems like common people have developed manners lately.
Not necessarily.
No.
Who does this? Who urinates on anybody now?
It happens a lot.
I've heard
People who live on the street.
I've
Oh,
heard,
really?
Yeah.
I've heard of pouring gas on people on the street.
Sure.
Oh, okay. He used to lie in his own stool and never move, but the stool of his body was fragrant like the smell of fragrant flowers. And a saintly person would recognize him as a Paramahamsa, one in the highest state of human perfection. One who is not able to make his stool fragrant should not, however, imitate Emperor Rishabhadev. The practice of Jata Yoga was possible for Rishabhadev and others on the same level of perfection, but such an uncommon practice is impossible for an ordinary man. The real purpose of Jata Yoga, as mentioned here in this verse, is prashanta karnaha, or subduing the senses. The whole process of yoga, under whatever heading it may be, is to control the unbridled material senses and thus prepare oneself for self-realization. In this age specifically, this Jata Yoga cannot be of any practical value. But, on the other hand, the practice of Bhakti Yoga is feasible because it is just suitable for this age. The simple method of hearing from the right source, Srimad Bhagavatam, will lead one to the highest perfectional stage of yoga. Rishabhadev was the son of King Navi and the grandson of King Agnidra, and he was the father of King Bharata, after whose name this planet Earth was called Bharatavarsha. Rishabhadev's mother was also known as Merudevi, although her name is mentioned here as Sudevi. It is sometimes proposed that Sudevi was another wife of King Navi, but since King Rishabhadev is mentioned elsewhere as the son of Merudevi, it is clear that Merudevi and Sudevi are the same person under different names. So, Omagyanā Timirandasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshur Onilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. I was born in the darkest of ignorance, and spiritual master opened my eyes with the torchlight of knowledge and offer my respectful obeisances unto him. So, first of all, I'll start with what it ends on, kind of with the family connections here. I thought this was really interesting because the last class we had was on, okay, my mind is not coming up with names, King Bena and King Prithu. Okay, Prithu was in the line from Uttanapada. Uttanapada was the father of Dhruva. So Uttanapada, Dhruva, and down the line like that. So interesting because Uttanapada was a brother of Priyavrata. And this personality, this Rishabhadev, is in the line of Priyavrata. They were two brothers. They had three sisters. One of their sisters was Devahuti, who married Kardama Muni and gave birth to Kapila, another incarnation. So this is really very, very interesting and amazing that this family connection. So they were, let's see, Uttanapada, Priyavrata, and Devahuti and two other sisters were all children of Swayambhuva Manu, who appeared with his wife. What's his wife's name? I wrote all this down. My brain is not very good. What was Swayambhuva Manu's wife's name? Shatarupa? I think. I'm not sure. So anyway, they came out of the deliberation of Lord Brahma when he was. They're directly born as a couple from Lord Brahma. and because he was worried about how to increase the population, because he was supposed to be increasing the population. It was very early in the creation, in this particular creation anyway. And there was not sufficient population yet, and Lord Brahma had done a lot of creating, and he still didn't have sufficient population, so he was deliberating on this, kind of worried about it, meditating on it. And out came Swayambhuva Manu and his wife, who's, I think, Kshetriya. And from them came these 5 children, and the two brothers were Uttanapada and Priyavrata. So Priyavrata is the one. Uttanapada is the father of Dhruva. Uttanapada had a favorite wife and an unfavorite wife, and that was what created the drama that Dhruva went into the forest seeking Lord Vishnu and wanted a greater kingdom than his grandfather, who was Lord Brahma.
Was his great-grandfather?
Lord Brahma? No.
Brahma?
Yeah, Swayambhuva, yeah, you're right, yeah. Okay. I did figure all this out, but I left my paper at home and now I can.
Mm-hmm.
So, short memory. So, what was the first part of it? Anyways, yeah, so.
He wanted a kingdom bigger than his great
Yeah, thanks. He wanted a kingdom bigger than his great-grandfather, right? And so and then he met Lord Vishnu, and then he didn't care anymore. Lord Vishnu gave him the pole star, which is greater, because it's a Vaikuntha planet. And then, the other side, Priyavrata, he was the one, he was already renounced, and he got talked into by Lord Brahma came and asked him, and his father, Priyavrata's father was Swayambhuva Manu, trying to convince him, you need to get married, and you need to have offspring because we need to populate the universe, it's your duty. He didn't want to because he was already self-realized. But then, so Lord Brahma came. I read all this story. I don't know how to remember all this, but anyways. So he got convinced that it was his duty. So he accepted it. He had a beautiful wife, and he was in love with her. And then he got really deeply involved in this whole family thing. But then he had to eventually renounce again. But meanwhile, he was dissatisfied with the sun, that the sun gave light sometimes and not other times it was too dark. So he created light himself and rode his chariot around and made oceans and islands. So that's Maharaj Priyavrata's very early in creation. They're very big personalities. And then, so from him, his son Agnidra, and then Nabi, and then Rishabhadev. And Rishabhadev, now he is a real, like Kapila, he's a real incarnation. He's not just Shaktavesh incarnation. He's Krishna himself. He's the Lord himself, or Vishnu himself. And it's describing him. He was very beautiful. He wasn't blue, because he had brown hair. He wasn't the same complexion. But he was very, very, very beautiful. Beautiful eyes. He didn't get old. And so this is another part that's important, is that he willingly took up this role, householder role, and he willingly gave the example of Varnashram, because Varnashram had been kind of lost. And this is early in the creation, so it might mean it was lost since the last creation, but he gave the example, anyway, of Varnashram. He lived it perfectly, the Varnas and the Ashrams. He did the example perfectly and guided his kingdom perfectly according to that. And he was completely happy doing that. He was not like he had to be talked into it, like Maharaj Priyavrata. Because Rishabhadev is the Lord, and the Lord does do these material duties just to show, like Krishna in Bhagavad Gita. Let me find this one. It's in 3. Whatever action, let's see that first one. Whatever action a great man performs is 321. Common men follow, and whatever standards he sets by exemplary acts, all the world pursues. 22. O son of Pritha, there's no work prescribed for me within all the 3 planetary systems, nor am I in want of anything, nor have I a need to obtain anything. Yet I am engaged in prescribed duties. 23. For if I ever fail to engage in carefully performing prescribed duties, O Partha, certainly all men would follow my path. 24. If I did not perform prescribed duties, all these worlds will be put to ruination. I will be the cause of creating unwanted population, and I would thereby destroy the peace of all living beings. So, Rishabhadev, willingly and happily as a pastime, he's Krishna himself, as a pastime, he acted within Varnashram and gave the example of the teaching and the guidance as the king, as the emperor, to establish this way, because if he hadn't, the next phase of the cycle of the ages would not have run so well if he had not established Varnashram. Excuse me. We are single-handedly keeping the cough drop industry going. So, immediately it helps. So, that's another example of Rishabhadev, that he was Krishna himself. He was not subject to aging. He was very beautiful, and he, as his pastime, he happily performed the duties of Varnashram and gave the example and the teaching to establish that. And then we talk about this Jaya Yoga, which is very interesting. It's very interesting that materialistic yoga is accepted as a valid thing. You think, materialistic, why is it accepted as a valid thing? And it's accepted as the highest perfectional situation of liberation, wherein one is situated in oneself and is completely satisfied. That's really interesting. Of course, we're told that it's useless in this age, but in a way, we're also told that all of the yogas are for the same purpose, for controlling the senses. Where did it say that sentence? Well, I read it within the purport there. The whole process of yoga, under whatever heading it may be, is to control the unbridled material senses, and thus prepare oneself for self-realization. So, in that age, you could do this self-imposed, probably sitting in an icy river in winter to meditate, or sitting in the middle of a ring of fires and a hot sun in the summer, are part of that too.
That sounds like Satya Yoga.
This would be Satya Yoga, yeah. Because it's very early. They're still trying to establish the population. Brahma is still trying to see, how am I going to establish the population? So, trying to get everybody, make sure you get married and have children, because we need some population. So, it was definitely Satya Yoga. And so they could do these things, this self-imposed kind of sufferings, to become detached from it. And the purpose is to control the senses and become detached. So it's a valid means of liberation, of self-realization. Not valid for us, because we can't do it. We'd either become proud, or resentful, or just miserable.
Or die.
Or die. Yeah. In the icy river, or in a ring of fire in the hot sun, we just die. And if we, pluck out, I don't know what, I think it probably would hurt, pluck out your beard hairs and stuff. We just say, forget this, I plucked out half a dozen, okay, I did my duty. I'm not doing it anymore. And so we can't do that kind of stuff. If somebody does do that kind of thing, they're probably mentally ill. They probably are not normally functional. So we just can't do that. At the same time, it's a purpose for controlling the senses. So even our simple, easy bhakti yoga practices, we control the senses because we're using them in Krishna's service. One definition of bhakti is to use our senses in service of Krishna's senses. So by means of our knowledge-acquiring senses and our working senses, we can perform these bhakti yoga things to practice pleasing Krishna's senses. For example, cooking or dressing the deities. How do we know if it's good cooking or not, except by our senses? We don't taste it, of course. We can smell it, we can see it, we can hear it cooking. Is it sizzling too high? Is it burning? We can use our senses like that. And it's for the purpose of pleasing Krishna. Likewise, dressing the deities. Does this color look good with this color? Yes, that's really pretty. I like that. So do it for Krishna. So we are using our senses, 10 senses, knowledge-acquiring senses and working senses, to serve Krishna's senses. And in that way, we're controlling our senses. Just like the prayer we say for prasadam, about how this nice prasadam is helping us to control our senses. Because we're using our sense of taste to taste Krishna prasadam and get Krishna's mercy that way. So Bhakti Yoga is very easy. It's just right for this age. But it's, Krishna mentions others. When you practice Bhakti Yoga, you have to learn the whole thing. You have to learn the whole philosophy. And you have to learn about how we are actually getting detached from our senses. It doesn't just happen automatically, that by doing Bhakti Yoga, we automatically, without any knowledge of without any effort, become detached from our senses. We have to practice it. You have to practice this knowledge. And it's in the Bhagavad Gita. I'm going to read some verses right in chapter 2 about controlling our senses. And so it's start right in the beginning to Arjuna. And then Krishna didn't want to say too much about controlling his senses, because Arjuna would then go off and meditate instead of fighting. So Krishna had to hold back on that. So he still had more things he wanted to say. And so we have in the 11th canto the Uddhava Gita, where he told Uddhava so much about renunciation and self-control. So it's like, whoa, I thought we were just supposed to go to war for Krishna, I mean, we're actually supposed to be responsible for becoming renounced also. So Krishna goes to great lengths to describe it in the 11th canto. So I'll just read in the Bhagavad Gita some verses in chapter 2. After Arjuna's question. Arjuna said, "O Krishna, what are the symptoms?" This is 54. "What are the symptoms of one whose consciousness is thus merged in transcendence? How does he speak, and what is his language? How does he sit, and how does he walk?" But here Arjuna is asking kind of from the outside, like, sure can't be me. I would never be like that. How can I see one of these people you're talking about? How can I tell who they are? So he doesn't yet understand that he's going to become like that. So anyway, the Supreme Personality of Godhead said, "O Partha, when a man gives up all varieties of desire for sense gratification, which arise from mental concoction, and when his mind thus purified finds satisfaction in the self alone, then he is said to be in pure transcendental consciousness. One who is not disturbed in mind even amidst the threefold miseries, or elated when there is happiness, and who is free from attachment, fear, and anger, is called a sage of steady mind. In the material world, one who is unaffected by whatever good or evil he may obtain, neither praising it nor despising it, is firmly fixed in perfect knowledge. One who is able to withdraw his senses from sense objects as a tortoise draws its limbs within a shell, is firmly fixed in perfect consciousness. The embodied soul may be restricted from sense enjoyment, though the taste for sense objects remains. But seizing such engagements by experiencing higher taste is fixed in consciousness. The senses are so strong and impetuous, O Arjuna, that they forcibly carry away the mind, even of a man of discrimination, who is endeavoring to control them. One who restrains his senses, keeping them under full control, and fixes his consciousness upon me, is known as a man of steady intelligence. While contemplating the objects of his senses, a person develops attachment for them, and from such attachment, lust develops, and from lust, anger arises. From anger, complete delusion arises, and from delusion, bewilderment of memory. When memory is bewildered, intelligence is lost. And when intelligence is lost, one falls down again into the material pool. But a person, free from all attachment and aversion, and able to control his senses through regulative principles of freedom, can obtain the complete mercy of the Lord. For when thus satisfied in Krishna consciousness, the threefold miseries of material existence exist no longer. In such satisfied consciousness, one's intelligence is soon well established. I guess I can keep going. You get the idea, but there's a few more. I like these verses anyways. For one thus satisfied in Krishna consciousness, the threefold miseries are you get. existence, threefold miseries exist no longer. In such satisfied consciousness, one's intelligence is soon well established. One who is not connected with the Supreme in Krishna consciousness can have neither transcendental intelligence nor a steady mind, without which there is no possibility of peace. And how can there be any happiness without peace? As a boat on the river is swept away by a strong wind, even one of the roaming senses on which the mind focuses can carry away a man's intelligence. Therefore, O mighty armed, one whose senses are restrained from the objects is certainly of steady intelligence. What is night for all beings is the time of awakening for the self-control, and the time of awakening for all beings is night for the introspective sage. A person who is not disturbed by the incessant flow of desires that enter like rivers into the ocean, which is ever being filled but is always still, can alone achieve peace, not the man who strives to satisfy such desires. I'm going to stop there because this is, I like that verse. I wanted to make sure to include that one. So,
Which one?
the one I just read about the rivers entering the ocean.
Oh, yeah.
All the desires, like the rivers entering the ocean, and the mind is still at peace. And the ocean doesn't get any bigger just because rivers are entering. So the mind is processing all this water in a very peaceful way. I mean, the ocean is the mind is processing the desires. So, Arjuna wanted to worry about what to do, the right thing, how to satisfy this. This is not going to work, this is going to work. And he didn't know yet about displeasing Krishna and just doing his duty. In that moment, he didn't know it. I mean, he always kind of knew it in a way because he's a pure devotee of Krishna always. But in his particular lifetime, these associates of Krishna who have to become humans to participate with him have to kind of relearn each time because that's part of the whole story. So he had to relearn this. And so this is the goal of this Jada Yoga. By the way, the Jada Yoga, Bharat is one of the sons of Rishabhadev. He's the first son. Rishabhadev had 100 sons, and the first one is Bharata Maharaj, who became the next king. After which was when Rishabhadev left home and wandered about like a madman. And in the story, he wandered about like a madman and he kind of figured out this is not so good if people are spitting on me and urinating on me. So then he became like a python. He just laid down in one place. And he passed stool and urine there and rolled in it. And what food came his way, he ate it. And that way, I guess, he wasn't wandering around so that people could make offenses. So that was after, and Bharata Maharaj was the emperor then. And Bharata Maharaj is the eldest of, he had 99 younger brothers. And among those 99 are the Nava-yogendras, the 9 yogendras, great sages who came and spoke to, who they speak to? I can't remember the name of the king, but Narada Muni was telling someone about this. I think you used to. Anyways, so and then other ones were great kings and so on. And then Bharata Maharaj had his whole story where he became attached to a deer. He was so advanced. He was so wise and so advanced and so self-realized that he got attached to a baby deer. And he took birth as a deer. So we know that story. And then he took birth as a human and he became Jada Bharata. So he was, again, this word Jada. So like materialistic, or like a stone. Materialistic yoga, like a stone, be like a stone and be non-reactive. So he practiced being non-reactive to everything, and he kind of played like he didn't know what was going on, so that everybody would leave him alone. He could wander around like this. And that's his story, the son of Rishabhadev. Rishabhadev also did this. Rishabhadev is Krishna himself, who performed this pastime. And wandering around, he was still beautiful, but he was all disheveled and long hair and beard and dirty, and really dirty, and wandering around like he didn't know anything, and totally unreactive to everything. Just tempted idiots to do things to him, insulting things to him. So what was this train of thought here? We can't practice Jada Yoga, but we can practice toward the goal of Jada Yoga. Because things happen to us we don't do on purpose. We have enough problems coming to us anyway. We get sick. We have fights with people. We have, monetary troubles. And so many things happen. We have to practice to be undisturbed within, in our Krishna consciousness. So that is the goal. We have to know this philosophy. We have to know about these kind of yogas and these kind of practices, so we can apply that. It's like a meditation within, thinking about these kind of yogas and this kind of self-control. Well, we always have to hear about the yogi who sits in the icy river in the winter and sits among the fires in the hot summer in the sun. We always have to hear about these things. Why? So inwardly we can meditate. What are these senses? How can we be? Sometimes just by, in a subtle way, by thinking about it, you make some progress doing something. You do it in a subtle way. So just by hearing about it and thinking about these things, and trying to practice being detached to our own senses and our own situations, if they can do that, well, maybe I can tolerate this. Then we can make spiritual advancement. Can't just by doing the external activities of bhakti yoga and the things from the list of bhakti yoga, and I chant my rounds, I do my deity service. You don't automatically make all your advancement that way. You also have to think and meditate these things that are detaching from our senses. We are applying our senses to something higher, so we also have to meditate on how we're controlling our senses materially. Otherwise, we'll come back and practice bhakti yoga again, because we'll still be attached here. We'll be still trying to please our material senses too. So it's very, very deep philosophy, and very, you have to read all of Prabhupada's books, and by reading them, some of this subtle practice goes on inside. Read and try to understand and talk about it with the other devotees. And try to practice. Why are you chanting your grounds? How can I be undisturbed by these things around me? We have to consciously practice these things. So, I'll stop here. Questions and comments. Of course, your hand is up immediately. Yes?
You had said previously that Ishadadev he is Krishna, but he's the first Avaduta. And
well, he was Avaduta. I don't know if he was the first one. Maybe there's maybe the first one in this creation.
Okay.
I don't really know. I don't really know what. There was a lot of sages created at the same time, really highly advanced beings. No?
Just a comment. As I was reading through the Srimad Bhagavatam, I hadn't got to that part of the Bhagavatam yet. I believe the fifth canto. But I had a dream one night, and I just kept hearing Lord Rishabhadev's name over and over. And I had to actually go in and look to find out who he was. And the thing that really stuck with me was 5:5:18. We have no business becoming a spiritual master, a mother, a father, a husband, or a wife, unless we can deliver our dependents from the cycle of birth and death. And that's really struck me.
That's a good test. And the Chaitanya Charitamrita, chapter 8:19, I had wondered why you could be liberated, get moksha, or mukti, without going through bhakti. And he said, the great sage Narada said, my dear Maharaj Yudhisthira, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna, is always ready to help you. He is your master, guru, God, very dear friend, and head of your family. Yet sometimes he agrees to act as your servant or order carrier. You are greatly fortunate because this relationship is possible only by bhakti yoga. The Lord can give liberation, mukti, very easily, but he does not very easily give one bhakti yoga, because by that process he is bound to the devotee. So in these other liberation modalities, the Lord is not bound to the devotee. But in bhakti yoga, he's bound to the devotee. So if you're sitting in a stream and controlling your senses, and by the grace of the Lord, He says, okay, you've done that long enough, you can get liberation. He's not bound to that soul the same way as a soul who performs bhakti yoga, according to that.
And the result isn't the same. They don't get the same level.
Well, they may go to the Baba Jyoti, or maybe they might go to they might live in the same
Low
planet.
planet.
Maybe they go to Vaikuntha in some capacity where they're just appreciating it. I don't know, maybe
Well, to
bhakti
me,
yoga or something.
Dhruva Maharaj is performing a type of, it only took him 6 months, so an unusual exception. But, that was basically, he got
Well,
the whole Vaikuntha plan.
He was seeking Vishnu, though. He wasn't just trying to seek liberation, he was seeking Vishnu.
Yeah.
He wanted a benediction from Vishnu.
Well, but seeking liberation is Vishnu indirectly or directly, the liberation from material existence means ultimately Brahma Jyoti is Vishnu also. It's his effulgence.
It's all Krishna.
But just a little side note, when you read all those Bhagavad Gita verses, when you said the rivers flowing into the ocean, that's true, that's a really poetic. But the one that says, and how can there be any happiness without peace?
Right.
And Naradi, my first wife, she wrote a really beautiful melody to that. And I always, when I hear that, I can hear her singing. And how can there be, I can't do it, happiness without peace? You can actually get it it's on YouTube or something.
Wow.
Peaceful Mind by the Mariah Band. It's all the verses that you just read up to that point. How can there be any happiness without peace? Really beautiful melody. Nice production. I do say so myself.
Yes? Oh, you got, maybe it's Vishnu.
Who was waiting? Someone?
Well, my husband had his hand up too, and I don't know which one of you first.
Take Krishna.
Krishna was this time.
Krishna
Okay,
can go.
Krishna.
What comes to my mind reading in the 4th canto, and I was thinking about when you're talking about Varnashram, and Prabhupada was making the point in my words that you can't just have, it's important to follow your duties and what you need to do, but you also have to have bhakti yoga, and then he later on explains to conquer the unconquerable Lord and go to the where he is and be associated with him. So the two are like in hand. It's important to do our Brahminical work, but also with love and devotion. We can be on the altar and our mind can be so many miles and miles away, but be on the altar like an affectionate love and kind of a way. Yeah, something like that with Prabhupada was, about deity worship, and that's an important aspect, to have affection for the Lord, love for the Lord while we're performing our duties like that.
Well, just Varnashram itself, if you do it for the Lord, that's karma yoga. Varnashram, holistic Varnashram is in the realm of karma. By karma yoga, you do your Varnashram duty for Krishna. So that's another kind of yoga. And all of the yogas are for controlling the senses and for connecting with Krishna.
But he did mention that bhakti yoga is necessary to.
Oh yeah, they all have.
God to
There has to be some
conquer
bhakti.
the unconquerable. He's not going to be conquered by someone who's just performing a certain
So you
Lana or ashram without the love.
So you're saying, I think you're saying that there's a little bit of bhakti yoga in all the other yogas in order to connect.
One must have to have that
Mm-hmm.
consciousness of I'm serving Krishna, serving God, love, with devotion, in order to
But in
have
all
that.
reverence.
Yes, that's what Prabhupada just said, Lakshmi Ryan like that. But I was remembering that when I was reading the purport, and Prabhupada's purports like that, they go hand in hand, that you can form, like I'm out in the fields trying to do some kind of gardening, Vaishya kind of, maybe something, taking care of the cows, but the understanding is what Prabhupada was saying, that we have to turn it to Krishna, turn it to love. This is for your service, for your pleasure, that kind of thing. Whereas people that are just out there doing their farming work, doing that, they're not going to conquer you.
Yeah, well, that is the same thing, that you can do your karma, you do your duty. Right? That's doing your karma. Because whatever duty you got by your karma. So you do your duty, but you do it for the sake of Krishna. That's introducing a little bhakti yoga. There's no such thing as like pure karma yoga. It's got bhakti in it. Oh, it's not karma yoga. It's not trying to link with the Supreme. It's got some kind of bhakti, some kind of devotion to the Supreme. I think that's kind of what you're saying. I couldn't hear that easily. Okay.
Also, one thing is that you said, another creation, and of course I think there's probably some mini destructions in between, shifting of ages and kalpas, but I think it's like, it's not like the creation at the end of a day of Brahma, but it's like another kalpa. Some of these are like, one recently we read something, I think I was reading it, and it was the 4th Manu, and right now we're in the 12th or the 14th Manu. So that means it's many kalpas ago, cycles. And in between those, of course, I believe there's like a type of, partial devastating,
Because it's interesting, because both in the story of Dhruva and somewhere in this story about Lord Vrishabhadev, there's mention of there are many cities and villages and mines and all these kind of things. And where'd that population come from? So it's not really explained that clearly, that somehow that population had to increase, whether it was a matter of we got to have a population of Brahmanas and Kshatriyas to control this thing, or there was simultaneously he was increasing the other kind of population. I don't know. I was trying to figure that out and I don't know. Can't really tell. It's sort of like reading the Bible, and there's some humans are created and they have some children, and the children go off and get married to somebody.
Yeah, there's only Adam and Eve, and then all of a sudden there's...
Yeah. So the whole story isn't necessarily recounted. There's something else going on too, but yeah.
Did Prabhupada did do translation work on the 10th canto, right? The first part of it?
Yeah, he did part of it.
10-2-32, did he do that, or was that done by...
He went up to, like, the 13th chapter.
Wow. So this is Prabhupada's translation here in 10-2-32. Someone may say that aside from devotees who always seek shelter of the Lord's lotus feet, there are those who are not devotees, but who have accepted different processes for obtaining salvation. What happens to them? In answer to this question, Lord Brahma and the other demigods say, O lotus-eyed Lord, although non-devotees who accept severe austerities and penance to achieve the highest position may think themselves liberated, their intelligence is impure. They fall down from their position of imagined superiority because they have no regard of your lotus feet. And that was linked to the verse I read before in the Chaitanya Charitamrita.
What's the point?
That you can do austerities and detach from love of Krishna as much as you want, but then you only get the Brahma, especially if you're doing Mayavadi and think you are the Supreme, so you think you're God. So basically you're not really serving and developing a relationship with the Lord. You think you are the Lord.
Is this all in line with the concept that a little bit of bhakti yoga is required to make karma yoga and jnana yoga?
I would say, yeah. Because you will come back. That same verse, the Chaitanya Charitamrita 8:19, at the end, Prabhupada wrote, because Mayavadi philosophers have no information regarding the transcendental service of the Lord after obtaining liberation from material activities and merging into the Brahma effulgence, they must come down again to this material world to open hospitals or schools or perform similar philanthropic activities. So they can only go so high and then they have to come back.
Mm-hmm.
So they get liberated, but it's a temporary liberation.
Yeah.
So Auntie Sundari is wondering, you're going to be here tomorrow, Krishna Shai?
I hope to.
I'm giving class in the morning again.
Oh, you are?
So we're hoping
It's,
everything will work.
Padma thought that she might like to do a class on Saturday, and so, but she still wanted to do a class, so I said she could have mine, and then Padma backed out.
Oh.
So, still wondering what to do about Saturday.
You can't do on Saturday?
I don't know.
Well, we're hoping
Because,
to record
well,
it in the morning.
maybe you might be needed somewhere, because also there's the possibility, although it's not, we're hoping for the best, you're going to just have surgery tomorrow night.
Right.
And so he may not be able to do his day, so we may need one or two people.
No, Friday is bad for me because it's our cooking day.
Which one?
Cooking
Friday.
day, Friday.
Friday.
Yeah,
Okay.
so,
So maybe Saturday, we'll see. I also have, what's her name? The lady with the two children, I forget.
yeah, I haven't learned her name quite right yet.
Saroj Anandini.
I have to write it down.
Sarojini?
Saroj Anandini.
Sarojini. I have to write it down or I'll never remember. You have it written down correctly? Maybe I could get it from you. Put it on my phone, then I'll know. Okay. Anything else? Everybody, thank you all very much. Okay, all glories to Srila Prabhupada, all glories to Srimad Bhagavatam.